Is culture in America dead? I think that is an interesting question, and I think that the answer is yes. Or at least it's changed so much that it's almost unrecognizable to the past generations of Americans. What do we have that really represents us in America now? It's just normal American people. Because life in America has changed fundamentally over my lifetime. And I don't really see any true representation of that, whether it's in the media, whether it's in TV, movies, what you're streaming. There's a simulacrum of what America used to be, I think, but we actually don't know who we are anymore in this present. And if you don't know who you are, can you actually have a culture? And I think that that's another question. I think America has actually lost its story and has just become kind of an economic farm is really all that it is. It's a place where you can get money and lose it simply by living here. But the things that used to represent America on a cultural level, the things that we used to believe about ourselves, the things that we expected in life, that created kind of the narrative of the basic American, just growing up, having a family, having a home, raising kids, going on vacations, enjoying the holidays with family. And that beautiful Norman Rockwell idea just doesn't exist. The only time that we can actually get anything like that is in rom-coms or in some other trash that's on Netflix, because in reality, it's just not really here anymore. If you're upper middle class, yeah, maybe you can still live that kind of life. But for the most Americans, like I said, 70% of Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people who are millionaires in America are actually living paycheck to paycheck just because they're house poor. Most people who own houses in America are house poor. If there was ever a time where being an American was tied to kind of a normalization of affluence, maybe not in a way that we would consider affluence, but a way that the world would consider us to be affluent, I think that that's just gone now. It's very difficult for people to maintain any kind of decent life in America. And I think that that's what America kind of was. It was just having decency, right? We were a nation that was high trust. You can trust people. When I was a kid, we never really locked our front door, but the world seems to have become so dangerous. There's riots, thieves, home invasions, people trying to take your kids away. Maybe it's because the population has gone up and it just means that there's more crazy people out there. But I think that there's just kind of a social sickness that is really laid into America. And I think that a lot of that is just when you don't have an identity, when you don't have anything that says this is who we're supposed to be as a people, then people are left to really find that on their own. And in that journey to really find who we are, I think we go through a lot of dark spots in our lives. Because like I said, that rubric, that framework for what it is to be an American is just gone. The cultural institutions that we used to have in America just don't really seem to be here anymore because they're not really taught anymore. They don't really teach civics in school anymore, and the history that they teach about America is really simply the most negative things. Now, I understand, yes, the negative things are important for us to learn, but at the same time, we have to learn to appreciate ourselves and what our country is supposed to be if we ever want our country to be that country, to actually fulfill the idea of what our country is supposed to be. The fact is, America has become quite a hollow place. The people here are hollow because what do we have to do? I don't put much blame on the American people, really, especially now, because if you're in it now, if you're in the rat race now, if you're in the game of life in America now, then you're just suffering the consequences of decisions that were made far before your time. And that's where we all are here. We're all just kind of dealing with the shit show that's been left on our doorstep. And it's a shit show. And it is a real shit show that is hard to deal with. That is for sure. But I think that America will come out of this a better place. I think that America, in the next 50 years, number one, I think it's still going to be here. And I think that a lot of people think that it's not going to be. I think that it's going to be so very different. I think that there's going to be a generational change as the old guard kind of slips away into the ether and the new guard rises. Because there has to be change. Because you can't continue this course. If we continue this course, then no one's going to be able to afford anything. No one will be able to afford to live. And when you have an entire population who can't afford to actually be the population they're supposed to be, then it can get quite bad. The crime will explode. Violence will explode. Political violence will explode. And change out of necessity will happen. And of course, a great change is needed. But I don't ever want to see my country in an actual civil war. I'd hate to see that. What I would like to see in my country is have the balls to actually get some kind of change. But how does that even happen at this point with, what, 380 million people? How does that happen? You know, like, we're called the United States, and that's the thing. To be an American used to have kind of a sense of unity to that, a unity to the message of being an American. But we're so fractured, right? We're so balkanized that we look at each other in paranoia. We don't really like each other. I mean, it's like we have nothing in common. Like, the only thing that really represent us are the influencers that we follow, but the influencers that we follow aren't actually real people. They're just actors, right? As much as you like an influencer that you may be watching on YouTube, the fact is for the most part, they're just playing a character. And any kind of authenticity is elusive because it's all about kind of feeding the algorithm. And I can't do that, right? Like, I'm a bit introspective by nature, and I like kind of tearing things apart, and I'm really not happy with America. So I try to be as authentic as I possibly can be on here. But a lot of the influencers in kind of the same space that I'm at, you know, it's just click farming, and it's just everyone's recreating the exact same videos. And sometimes even line for line. Like, I have videos that I do that, you know, if they do really well, a week later, you know, someone else who mirrors my content will do the exact same video. And it's the same people watch it. It's just a big loop. But that's who we are now. We're not creators, really. We're just followers of trends. And maybe that's what it is to be human in a culture, is just to follow a trend. But it feels like we've lost a serious kind of creativity now. Or at least if we do have that creativity, it's not really a part of our lives anymore. The creativity that we have in America is simply to make things more convenient while at the same time more expensive. But convenience used to mean that we'd have more time in our day to live our lives with our family. But convenience now in America usually is just to make your labor easier, not to give that time back. Like I said, I think there has to be a change, but America as a whole, the culture is dead. I think so. I think what used to be our culture, I think what used to be American identity, I think what used to represent Americans is just gone. We can see that with the political division that we have right now, with the many deviating narratives that we have in America. What it is to be us it's up for debate. It's up for contestation. It's no one knows, really. America's a lost place, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, we're a country, we have a strong military, right? We have a GDP, we have a ton of debt. Right? But I mean, we're still a powerhouse, but at the same time, no one here knows what's going on. Right? At a fundamental level of saying, who are we? We have no clue. And I think that is incredibly damaging and scary, because if we don't know who we are, we certainly have no idea where we're going. And I think maybe it's meant to be that way. Maybe Americans were not meant to know what direction we're going in, because it's not up to us. Right? Like, our votes don't matter anymore. The people who are in charge, they're the ones who make the decisions. It just always seems to end up being the same thing, with us going into a war somewhere, having a real big distraction to get our minds away from how difficult things are getting here in the States, how expensive things are getting, you know, how the quality of goods, quality of life is going down, how no one can actually afford to live a life in America without putting in 60, 70 hours a week. The gig economy just being a supplemental economy that supports more investments for the rich, while leaving normal basic Americans, 70% of the country, without. You know, it's rough. So when you have wealth disparity like that, I mean, how can we have any kind of cohesive idea of, number one, what's going on, because we have no time to actually live our lives, or what's going to happen in the future, because we're so busy in the moment right now, we can't actually plan for anything that's going on down the road. Hopes and dreams, I guess. Maybe that's what our culture is. It's just a hope and a dream. And maybe that's what it always was. But I don't know. Tell me what you think. Does America still have a culture? Does America still have a culture now, or are we just kind of feasting off the remains of an old identity? It's a real question. But let me know what you think in the comment section. Like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member. We're going to put out more videos, by God, I promise. I promise. We got a trip to DC this weekend. Lovely, long drive, but gonna go to Guapo's and get some good pollo a la brasa. It's gonna be good. Some yuca fries. It's fantastic. And because carne asada is too expensive for me now, because I'm frugal and I'm not paying $5 for a taco. It's not gonna happen. But everyone, thanks for stopping by. As always, we appreciate the support. You guys have a good one.